Hello, this is Josh from Vitality Maximize, and today I am going to give a tribute to one of my mentors, Dr. Paul Eck. Before we begin, please don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell notification, and comment constructively on our YouTube and Odyssey channels. So let us begin with Dr. Paul Eck, a tribute to him. So I'm going to give a recount of what Dr. Larry Wilson has from Dr. Larry Wilson's website. And he was one who worked very closely with him for almost 1.5 decades, and continues to lead mineral balancing science from 1996 onwards. So, from Dr. Wilson, and I'll paraphrase this, I got this from his site. He says that Dr. Eck was born in Chicago, Illinois. He had a keen interest in science and chemistry and a desire to help others. While in school, he took classes to prepare for medical school, but he didn't have the most positive experience with physicians, and that convinced him that medical school was not up to standards. Not surprising. So he ended up attending the Chicago School of Naturopathy. Naturopathy is an intersection between chiropractic and what's its face, naturopathy. And as he graduated from that, earlier in his career, he gravitated towards the work of organoid pharmaceuticals, and then and throughout or during his career, he worked under a great mind called Dr. Ellis, and Dr. Ellis was the one who designed the micro diameter, and however, the micro diameter was taken off the market by the FDA and the American Medical Association. So why that happened, I don't know, but they seem to take very interesting things off the market, including things like the Rife machine. All right, this machine, though, the micro diameter, did help Dr. Eck in future when he started to tackle hair analysis. So in the 60s, he moved to Arizona from Chicago. In the 70s, hair analysis then became quite popular in terms of the science and application, and many physicians that started to look up to him because of his intelligence asked him to interpret hair analysis. The reason is because it was pretty mysterious, because supplementing a mineral that is low did not typically correct a low hair level, or typically didn't correct the low level in the first place. And Dr. Eck, as inquisitive and as brilliant as he was, took up the challenge. From there on, he integrated the work of many top doctors and scientists, and there came the birth of mineral balancing science. All right, and then we also have I don't know whether to say it's a recount, but it's more of like a tribute from the Healthview Newsletter about Dr. Paul Eck, and I'll read the most important quotes or the most striking comments. So for those who don't know Healthview, this was written by Colin Chatsworth, if I got that correctly, and he's also his brother. I forgot his name, but big up to them at the time when they were writing about health and wellness and overcoming their own health challenges at the time. So this was some of the things that was said. First one was that they think that Dr. Eck was one of the first people to present a broad scientific foundation for the entire field of nutrition. And I'll repeat again, Dr. They think that Dr. Eck is one of the first people to present a broad scientific foundation for the entire field of nutrition. I agree with them, and hopefully you'll agree too. Next one, very few people understand his work, and as a result, very few appreciate what he has to offer. This is very true and is still the case today, and I hope to change this, honestly speaking. All right, and then so the next one, the study of minerals was not merely a profession of Dr. Paul Eck, it was his life. And that couldn't be any more true, because I definitely mentioned recounts from Dr. Wilson saying that even as when he was young, he was a keen reader in science and chemistry. And even said it here on the Healthview Newsletter when on the page on his tribute. Is there anything else? And I'll say this: in many ways, Dr. Paul Eck is a maverick in the field of nutrition. Many of his views do not coincide with the numerous opinions and theories which exist today in the field of nutrition. In fact, he is in complete disagreement on a number of long-standing and established concepts. This is a very, very hard-hitting comment, and maybe this deserves a future video on some of the things that he did not really agree with in terms of the concepts, long-standing concepts when it comes to nutrition. All right, so that is this just sums up a little bit about Paul Eck and the influence that he has had through whether it's Dr. Wilson or Colin Chatsworth and people along those lines. And let's not forget that Dr. Eck is the founder of Analytical Research Labs and Endomet Laboratories. They are found in Phoenix, Arizona, and since the 70s, I think since 1975, they've been on it, they've been there, and they keep going, and they keep, being that forefront in the entire field of nutrition, if people really get to appreciate it better. So these are some of the work that Dr. Eck integrated from the time he devoted the rest of his life to hair analysis and mineral balance in science. One is Hans-Sandly, which is the stages of stress. In physiology books all across college, there most definitely is some work about Hans-Sandly. If you remember alarm, resistance, exhaustion, stages of stress, this is from the work of Hans-Sandly. So, his work is quite widespread. If you understand his work well, you understand quite a lot about, mineral balancing and hair analysis. Next one is Dr. George Watson, metabolic typing. I think it's one of the most people use this concept about metabolic typing. I think it tends to be bastardized quite a lot. But yeah, metabolic typing is really just another way of saying different strokes for different folks. Like for instance, there are some people who cannot tolerate much carbohydrates. They may tend to have lower blood sugar and higher blood fats, which means that they utilize fats better, and vice versa. And it also explains people's preferences to certain foods and stuff like that. So this is the significance of the work of Dr. George Watson. I don't think that it has been applied well enough for those who see that there are different strokes for different folks. But at least this is some of the work that Dr. Eck integrates, and thus I integrate. Another one is Melvin Page, on the work on the autonomic nervous system. Melvin Page, his significant work had to do with the relationship between calcium and phosphorus in regards to the teeth, in particular. If you want to know more about his work, I suggest getting the book Degeneration, Regeneration. You'll learn a lot about the autonomic nervous system, which is mediated by calcium and phosphorus, right? And the next one is William Albright. His signature work has to do with the mineral wheel. So that the wheel itself is very confusing for most people, and I don't blame you if it's confusing, but it does signify the importance of the mineral and nutrient interrelationships, and that's with the mineral wheel, the mineral system. Other work that integrates will be one, Lewis Kevran, being the biological transmutation of elements. I know that most people will think that this justifies everything about chemistry, physics, and biochemistry and other sciences, but that's their opinion. But the thing is that if you want to read this book, Biological Transmutation of Elements, and if you want to replicate some of his experiments, you'll find the exact same thing. Another word for biological transmutation is alchemy. So this one is probably one of the most controversial of the work that he's integrated, but I find this to be valid because if people really understand what happens when a mineral is transmutated to something else, then you get to understand. Anyway, moving on, I digress. Linus Pauling, the work on orthomolecular approach, the importance of vitamins. You can all take a look at his site, linuspauling.com, and read various books and biographies about him. He definitely was a smart man and a clever mind, especially in the 20th century. Karl Pfeiffer, his contributions had to do with the role of minerals in mental illness, especially with like schizophrenia, right? So this is Karl Pfeiffer, and that's Karl Pfeiffer. He found that he couldn't approach schizophrenics the same way, right? If you want to read more about his book, I think it's called Nutrition and Mental Illness or something like that. Maybe this is something I'll discuss about in future. And the last one is Henry Schroeder, Dr. Henry Schroeder, and his contributions had to do with the role of preferred minerals. So what this just means that every enzyme in the body, right, requires a mineral for it to function optimally. I'll give a good example would be RNA transferase. RNA transferase is a zinc dependent enzyme, um, and it's important for obviously gene expression. However, once if zinc is not occupying those RNA transferases, right, the body will pick less preferred minerals or less preferred options. This could be in the form of toxic metals like cadmium, mercury, or it could be copper. So um, it is important that the right minerals go into the right place and in the right enzymes, or else functions in the body will just be more expensive to execute. So, the importance of the work of mineral balancing, one of them is the critical role of toxic metals. Toxic metals do not biodegrade, unlike however, toxic chemicals do biodegrade, even whether it's slow or not. However, toxic metals do not biodegrade. So it is persistent and yeah, I also read somewhere that the half life of cadmium is 27 years without any serious intervention, without any intervention to try and remove cadmium from the body. So, toxic metals just they persist, they don't go away. Um, yeah, so I can't say much more about that. Next one is patterns and trends, rather than diagnosis and labeling. So what do I mean by this? It is that hair analysis and mineral balancing is not a medical diagnostic tool. I even think that even with blood and urine and other mediums, they're not. I can't. You won't really call this diagnostic tools, medical diagnostic tools in that sense. They are basically a window of how the body is producing energy within those mediums, right? So this is how I see it, to be honest. In my previous videos, when I talk about diagnosis and labeling, right, there tends to be like an over obsession with it and tends to dehumanize, um, you know, dehumanize someone and doesn't take into account the individual story as much. So, yeah, but yeah, every single what's it called assessment tool it's really a matter of patterns and trends. The difference between this and a diagnosis and labeling has to do with how people see, you know, the human body and nutrition and health and all of that stuff. But yeah, more emphasis on patterns and trends. The other importance of his work is that genetic diseases are either congenital in nature or epigenetic. So what we mean by this is that all health conditions and health challenges of today are either because of the what the parent passes on to you, like through pregnancy, prenatal and postnatal procedures and processes, and then there is also the epigenetic, which is as a result of like your diet, your lifestyle, and everything else that you do while you're alive. This is how health conditions and health challenges arise. I don't think that Dr. Eck ever really subscribed to defective genes. So Even before I knew who Dr. Eck is, I was pretty skeptical about, you know, genetic diseases or things that, they couldn't find a better way to explain other than genes. So, yeah. Although, so more about the importance of Dr. X's contributions. The next one is the bioavailability of minerals. This is mediated by obviously your digestive capacity, oxygen, oxygen saturation, and hydration and other parameters, as well as the mineral wheel discussed by William Albright, um, the mineral system. The next one is being optimum values greater than reference ranges. I don't need to buttress or say much of this, but if you want to be normal, so be it. If you want to be a highly optimized human being who want the best in life, then optimum values. And until the medical profession actually stop using reference ranges, or at least narrowing what is considered healthy or optimum for as a reference range. As long as the more they narrow it, I think the better. But I don't think that's going to change. Yeah. And the last one is the importance of minerals in nutrition. He has said that minerals are the stepchildren of nutrition, because as I mentioned before in my previous video, I did say that there are 80 times more minerals than vitamins, which means that minerals, without minerals, really nothing functions, and nothing functions as well, or chemical reactions are just more expensive to execute, so that means we die faster, literally. Some of the work that Dr. Eck considered but he rejected: replacement therapy is one. So I don't, and he doesn't imbibe, just trying to supplement something that is low on a hair test or any other test, in order to bring it back to, optimum value. The next one is symptomatic nutrition therapy. So we don't just, we don't just recommend things based on what may give you symptom relief, or even address a nutritional deficiency. We have to think in systems and how that affects the whole mineral system based on the chain reaction principle. Next one is megadosing of nutrients. While he was exposed to the work of Dr. Linus Pauling and much of the orthomolecular approach, he I don't think he imbibed all of it, and just took what was needful and didn't take the rest. What was I going to say here? Yeah, megadosing of nutrients does create its own imbalances, and may make can worsen your health in the long run. So, for instance, if you supplement so much zinc, you may create an inverse relationship between sodium and potassium, which can lead to fatigue, glucose intolerance, and other symptoms relating to an inverted sodium to potassium relationship. Otherwise, and then some of the other work he rejected: reference ranges. I don't need to say that. I think I talked about this well enough. Chelation therapy and most detox regimens. I wasn't a fan of using spirulina, chlorella, certain algae, EDTA, DMSO, and other like chelators, right? They thought that they all, what's the word, invert the sodium potassium relationship, and does lead to, lower vitality and, lower cellular potential, sorry, and does lower the cellular potential. By lower, it means make it more positive in that sense. And one thing that he was careful about, was not comparing hair tests with blood, urine, saliva, and others. The above, in my previous video, I did mention that they are completely different, you know, what's the word? They're completely different avenues and mediums, right? Blood is more homeostatic, hair is more, what's the word? Non-essential, and blood changes instantaneously. Hair, it's more stable, and, gives us a longer term reading. So, these are just some of the differences. So as we conclude, I just want to say that Dr. Paul Eck is really the maverick of the nutrition industry if you come to appreciate his work more. And I hope that, I gave a proper recount of some of the things that Dr. Eck supported, imbibed, and the things that he, tried to teach. And I hope to really bring this work forward in this new era that is so badly needed regarding our, healthcare systems, and maximizing human health and vitality. All right, so thank you once again. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification, and make comments, constructive comments on YouTube and on Odyssey. And I want to thank you for listening to this. So take care, God bless, and we see you soon.